Dear friends, within each of us is that fount of every blessing. Hello, my name is A.T. Miller, speaking to you from the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York and home to the Cayuga Nation still present in our community. I got to know Diane through being part of the search committee and then through working with her as clerk of the general committee, followed by serving as clerk of the personnel committee, and I continued to stay connected through being part of her support committee up through the present. So even when I rotated off the general committee, she couldn't get rid of me. I distinctly remember my first contact with Diane when members of the search committee were making the first phone calls to individuals who had been nominated or who were applicants. Kara Newell and I were assigned to call Diane, and we immediately engaged with her. There were still several months to go in the search process, but as we hung up after that first call, Kara and I turned to each other and said, "I think we've found the next leader." This was borne out in the rest of the extensive search process and, of course, over the past decade of leadership. One consequence of appointing the first woman to lead FCNL was a further impetus to change the title of our leader from executive secretary, which was even more anomalous in DC for a female leader. General secretary is both a bit more Quakerly and more respectful. When I think about Diane's leadership at FCNL, there's been significant growth in many important ways, from becoming a more diverse, inclusive, and equitable organization, to expanding our physical presence on Capitol Hill, to growing our staff capacity. Diane has led with courage and vision, willing to pursue the extraordinary opportunities that required quick decisions among friends, a real challenge, about precious and proximate real estate on Capitol Hill to develop the Quaker Welcome Center and Friends Place in a highly regulated and heavily zoned area. She revived and enhanced the Friend in Washington program to bring ongoing Quaker talent and expertise to FCNL, and of course led during an extraordinarily successful Capitol campaign. FCNL has stronger administrative capacity as a larger and more effective organization that has a broader footprint across the nation in terms of collaborations, friends of friends, and advocacy partners. In all of that, the distinctly Quaker mission has remained clear and at the core and shines through her own pattern and example. One area that is especially significant to many of us is the expansion of the young adult program. I remember before Diane came, in field committee meetings where we were strategizing about ways to develop and expand this program. At one time, I was the first young adult member of field committee, and you can see that that has been a while ago. However, it wasn't really possible to grow the program in a sustainable way until Diane came and put in place fundraising efforts to make it possible. That growth is a significant part of Diane's legacy at FCNL. That growth also, along with the significant growth of our advocacy teams across the nation, has led to a much greater participation of a wider range of committed people from all generations and backgrounds, people who care deeply, many of whom have been drawn to the Religious Society of Friends through FCNL's visible work, and are enriching all of our experiences through broader and deeper and more equitable interaction across difference, social identities, and structures of power. The ongoing transformation has been profound as the spirit expands with the strength of younger and collectively wiser and more agile voices along with the many tried and true. So tonight, we express our thanks to Diane Randall. Before I turn it over to her, I want to encourage you all to think about how this inspires you. Because after Diane speaks, we are going to have time in breakout rooms to reflect on this query. What action can I take in the coming months to continue building upon the firm foundation we have at FCNL? Diane?
Diane, you're muted. Okay, here we go. Thank you, AT, for that gracious introduction. Thank you, Annie, of course, for keeping us on track. Thank you all for being present for this celebration event, a recognition of FCNL's evolution over the past decade and a celebration of my work leading FCNL. I cherish this opportunity to be with you and speak with you. My heart is filled with hope and gratitude to those of you who are with us this evening, the General Committee, the FCNL staff, our activist network across the country, our generous donors who support this work, and for those who have served FCNL in its 78-year history. This is an evening about all of us, what we have accomplished together and how we are becoming. If you've read Michelle Obama's memoir entitled Becoming, you'll know what I refer to. One of the most admired, incredibly successful women in the world describes how she is still becoming. She says, "There's a lot I still don't know about America, about life, about what the future might bring, but I do know myself. Your story is what you have, what you will always have. It is something to own." Tonight, I'm going to tell you a little of my story, and I'll talk about FCNL's story, its evolution, and its becoming. Most of us can point to times in our lives when we thought we should have figured everything out, when we would no longer feel frustrated or anxious for not knowing the exact way forward. But the fact is that we are all becoming, as individuals and as an organization. Our story is written every day by our actions as we choose hope and work for justice. We are all becoming as we let our lives speak. Our faith practice of Quakerism is one that teaches us to stay open to continuing revelation. That is how we can experience leadings, both as individuals and as a corporate body. Here's how I experienced a leading to come to FCNL almost 12 years ago. Several different friends had encouraged me to look at the executive secretary opening at FCNL. I heard them, but I liked my work as an executive director of a nonprofit organization advocating for affordable and supportive housing in Connecticut. But when friend Ernie Buscemi, who I did not know at the time, but who was on the search committee, called to encourage me to become part of the candidate pool, that was a moment that made me listen differently. Ernie's deliberative, calm invitation to test if this might be a right path for me was the opening that led me to listen inwardly and deepen my own discernment. And through the weeks and months that followed, as I spoke with a search committee clerk, Gretchen Hall, and others on the search committee, AT and Kara, as well as the others, I knew I was held in the light by them. I was at ease throughout the process and in making the decision to accept the offer. Without certainty of what relocating to Washington, D.C. would mean for my family and what working at FCNL would be like, I knew it represented a new chapter in my becoming. FCNL's vision of the world we seek captured my moral imagination. When the General Committee approved my appointment at the annual meeting in 2010, it conveyed trust, not only the trust of the General Committee for the search committee's work, but a trust in divine guidance. It is that trust in the movement of the Spirit in our life together that binds us in this gathering. And it is our trust in God's abiding love that allows our comprehension of continuing revelation, our continuing evolution, our becoming. Evolution means the gradual development of something, especially from a simple to a more complex form. And in fact, in the past decade, FCNL has evolved into a more complex form. And we will continue to evolve, continue to become, as we live into the possibilities of the beloved community in a society that is racked by violence, inequity, inhumanity, and planetary peril. FCNL must continue to evolve because the world is more complex. Our comprehension of politics and culture is shaped not only by what FCNL focuses on, but by the constant availability of instantaneous news, information, and entertainment at our fingertips, curated for our individual interests and led to us by the algorithms of social media. This competition for attention in a chaotic world challenges us as a Quaker organization committed to practicing integrity and discernment. The ways in which we all communicate, everyone around the globe, and how we choose our affiliations has changed dramatically in the past decade, and especially in these past 2 years of pandemic time. Fcnl is evolving. We are becoming more diverse. We've talked about that a lot over the last few days. And in addition to claiming our Quaker identity, we have become more explicit in naming and claiming and including people with other identities. Through the staff that work here at Fcnl, through the people who participate in our programs, and through our governance, we claim identity by ethnicity, by race and culture, by religion or no religion, sometimes by Quaker theological background, by age, by gender, sexual orientation, economic and geographic background. Our vision is to seek equity and justice for all in a community in which everyone's potential can be fulfilled. That's not only for the rest of the world, it's also for Fcnl. It is who we are becoming. In order to be fully inclusive to all, to fulfill the community agreement that we have with one another, we will continue to evolve, shedding some habits and expectations we have of Fcnl while holding on to the essence of what creates us and who we are. As Vanessa July shared in her teaching yesterday, we must be truthful about our own history as a religious society, acknowledge within our own Quaker meetings our history, and discern how we will change. We must be truthful as a Quaker organization to pursue equity. There's a lot of history wrapped up in our 78 years together. We celebrate it with joy, and we will acknowledge where we have failed and how we will evolve and continue to grow into a beloved community. Political realities require us to evolve. While the 2020 national elections demonstrated an unprecedented turnout for voting, it also revealed a hardcore antipathy to democracy as we have known it and as we imagine it could be. The attempted coup to steal the election and the shocking insurrection at the Capitol this year, while directly tied to former President Trump, are not only a phenomenon of the Trump era, rather they represent a seething white power culture that is alive and dangerous in our country. How will Fcnl evolve to meet the challenge of operating within a governance system that some Americans want to overthrow and other Americans simply do not trust? How do we all live with one another? Maybe even how do we live with our neighbors whose hateful speech or behavior is alien to our moral grounding, to love thy neighbor, no exceptions? Friends, even as my heart is full of hope and gratitude in being with you this evening and for my decade of work with Fcnl, my heart is also broken and tender by the fractures in our society. My heart is broken that our political leaders have not acted to stop the pain and suffering of millions of human beings. People across the globe who face violence, poverty, insecurity, and fear. And people who fear, many of us, for the very future of our planet as we face the crises that humans have caused and we have not yet solved. Like you, I grieve the loss of over 5 million people from the COVID pandemic across the world, and the over 750,000 people dead in the United States, as well as the suffering and diminished health and well-being of millions of people. The news this week that in 1 year, this country saw 100,000 deaths from drug overdoses, and early reports that we are experiencing nearly 50,000 deaths by suicide a year, is further evidence of a society with gaping public health problems, a society that is not putting the welfare of human beings first. The pandemic has changed us. We are evolving to live with that reality. In this country, the pandemic has demonstrated profound disparities and differences, inequities in employment and healthcare, where Black and Brown people have experienced greater harm, as well as the harsh reality of angry people whose definition of freedom encourages disregard of public safety for everyone. We write our story as we move forward. who FCNL was in 1943 when E. Raymond Wilson began the organizations with friends from yearly meetings across the country, to who we are becoming as we confront today's political and social problems, is the story we create together by choosing hope, by acting for justice, and working for peace. In the past few days, we've written another chapter together in our lobbying for the Build Back Better bill, a transformational program that will change lives for so many people in our country. When I spoke at annual meeting 10 years ago, I had been working at FCNL for about 8 months. This was in 2011. I told the General Committee that we need to be bold, strategic, and relentless in our advocacy for the world we seek. And we have been bold, strategic, and relentless. We've been bold in building a bigger, stronger FCNL. AT referred to many of these things, but over the past 10 years, our staff size has more than doubled to over 60 positions, and our annual budget has grown to almost $9.5 million this year. We have established new young adult programs, new advocacy and outreach programs that reach across the country and support persistent, relationally driven advocacy. We have more lobbyists and we have more legislative priorities. We have more administrative and development support, and we have more real estate on Capitol Hill. We are financially healthy and we are ambitious in our mission. While this General Committee governs the organization of the Friends Committee on National Legislation, the companion organizations of the FCNL Education Fund, Friends Place on Capitol Hill, and the Quaker Welcome Center are all part of the enterprise. Our growth in the past decade has been guided by the priorities of the very successful 5-year capital campaign that had a great deal of support from a number of staff that we did in 2012 to 2017, and by our current forward plan, approved by the General Committee in 2017, that maps out 5 strategic goals. I would say that the evolution of FCNL has been gradual development from a simple to a more complex form. While I have served as executive secretary and now as a title general secretary for 10.5 years, the growth has really been possible because of you. This General Committee and those who have served earlier, our current staff and those who have worked at FCNL in the past decade. I want you to show each other just a few of the ways you are involved with FCNL. We're going to try a little audience participation with an instant poll. Annie and Bobby, who are running tech support, will put up a set of questions. I'm going to go ahead and name them. And I want you to this is just a yes or no. So every person should answer this and you just click on yes or no. So the question is, are you part of an advocacy team? Have you been involved in a young adult program? I need to get back to my script here. You can see them. Are you a monthly sustainer? Have you ever lobbied with FCNL? And that better be 100%. Have you ever stayed at Friends Place on Capitol Hill when it was known as the William Penn House? Have you ever written a letter to the editor on one of FCNL's issues? How about being involved in any of the trainings or discussions on how FCNL can become more diverse, equitable, and inclusive? Have you made a planned gift to FCNL, that is a bequest or a charitable gift annuity? Have you participated in setting legislative priorities in your own Quaker meeting or church? Have you encouraged other people you know to advocate with FCNL? Okay, that's the question. That's not all of our programs. We could only do 10. So let's see, can we see the results of those? I don't know if I can see them or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to end the poll now. It looks like responses are coming in.
Okay.
And share results.
All right. We have a lot of advocacy team members. We have a few people who've been involved in our young adult programs. We've got 45% of the people viewing tonight are sustainers, and you can up that and help us meet our 25 goal, 25 sustainers. Look at 91% have lobbied. Many of you have stayed at Friends Place, and I know you're going to want to stay there again. You've written letters, you've attended trainings. Oh, I got to go down a little bit to see it. Oh, you've participated in setting legislative priorities. That's great. And thank you for encouraging other people to advocate with us. Because of your participation, you have helped make FCNL a bigger and bolder organization, with a readiness to take up persistent advocacy on difficult issues, and to see problems in a new light. For example, the shared security project that Bridget Moix led with AFSC when she was the Director of Foreign Policy here at FCNL helped us reframe the construct of national security to include global security and human security as the basis of our advocacy for international policy. And the project that Diana Olbaum has led over the past couple of years of dismantling racism and militarism in US foreign policy assesses the patriarchal, racist, and violent foundations of militarism that have undergirded US foreign and domestic policies at the cost of billions of dollars and millions of lives and livelihood. We have been bold in expanding the physical presence of FCNL on Capitol Hill with the creation of the Quaker Welcome Center, an apartment for the Friend in Washington program, and now with Friends Place on Capitol Hill, soon to open, welcoming groups to stay in a beautifully renovated guest house in an ideal location just down the street from the US Capitol and a 10-minute walk from FCNL's main office. This program will expand FCNL's vibrant outreach and engagement with young people. Our legislative priorities approved by this general committee call us to identify, expose, and work to eliminate institutional racism, institutional sexism, and other forms of systemic discrimination in each legislative priority. Now, we have 12 legislative priorities that you approved in 2020. And so we work to do that, and we have done more to do that in the last couple of years. I'm going to name just 4 of our legislative priorities because I think it's important to remember the breadth of how bold we are. Promote nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation. Address structural economic inequality. Strengthen environmental protections and advance environmental justice. Ensure that the US immigration system promotes and respects the rights, safety, humanity, and dignity of all immigrants, refugees, and migrants. Those of you in Quaker meetings will be revisiting these priorities soon as we ask your meetings and churches across the country to offer their discernment. And then we couple that with our staff's discernment about what the FCNL focus will be in the next congressional session. But as you can tell by hearing only 4 of the 12 priorities, we have been very bold in laying out an ambitious legislative agenda, even with a larger staff than we had a decade ago. So it is essential for us to be strategic in how we advocate. And how have we been strategic in our advocacy? We've used the power of our grassroots network, which includes many of you, to bolster the advocacy of our lobbyists on the Hill. The ability of FCNL to show up in so many offices demonstrates our witness and our power. While we aim to talk to every congressional district, every office on the Hill, there are some states and districts that, because of the members' role on the committee or the members' willingness to take out a strong position on a particular piece of legislation, they become really essential for us to talk to. Constituents who have relationships with these members and who are willing to use those relationships for FCNL offer invaluable lift for our work. Everything we do with congressional offices is richer because of shared constituent and lobbyist interactions. And you've proven that again during the Quaker Public Policy Institute and your lobbying on Build Back Better. When the history of repealing the 2002 AUMF is written, FCNL will be in that story. Your persistent and strategic focus on the repeal of this outdated statute that, along with the 2001 AUMF, has provided presidential authority without due congressional oversight to wage war and violent conflict is a vital step toward the world we seek, a world free of war and the threat of war. This is an achievement worthy of celebration. Full stop. Relish it, own it. This legislative success, along with the successful approval of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the Iran nuclear deal in 2015, the passage of the First Step Act in 2018, and the Elie Wiesel Atrocity and Prevention Act in 2019 are huge victories for our lobbying at FCNL, and you've been part of all of those. Of course, our lobbying requires us to be strategic in our communications as well. writing thoughtfully and working to place op-eds, distribute press releases, maintain a vibrant social media presence, including a dynamic website, and regularly, although not too frequently, send action alerts, newsletters, and invitations to events to those who have opted in to receive them. We are persistently working to get more people to opt in, to join our communications and our advocacy. We know that our strategic advocacy and these legislative victories would not be possible without persistence. I would say that we are relentless in our lobbying. We are willing to work for many years to achieve these successes, and we are relentless in pressing onward for realizing the full ambition of our goals when we've had to find common grounds and not get quite everything we wanted. If this ambitious agenda or other things happening in the world leave you feeling tired, discouraged, or perhaps even a sense of despair about the challenges that confront us, and I think we all know these feelings, I encourage you to acknowledge that condition. If there's one thing that I've learned during the isolation of the pandemic and the societal and personal racial reckoning of the past months, and the anxiety that many feel from the worsening climate catastrophes, means that taking care of myself means it's okay to step away. It's good to have a support group. It's refreshing to spend time in the natural world, and it's emotionally satisfying to affirm and appreciate one another. In spite of whatever gloom I may experience, I never lose hope. And I encourage you to always choose hope. Hope is so fundamental to what FCNL does and to who we are. Brian Stevenson, founder of the Equal Justice Initiative, a MacArthur Genius Awardee, and a hero of mine, calls hope our superpower. He says, don't let anybody or anything make you hopeless. Hope is the enemy of injustice. Hope is what will get you to stand up when people tell you to sit down. Faith can also make you stand up and speak up. And our faith comes in many forms: faith in God, faith in our community, faith in the life force that surrounds us. The verse from Hebrews 11 has been a mantra for me during my work at FCNL. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. I came to work at FCNL because I wanted to lobby for the policies that move our world toward peace, equity, and justice, and care for our environment. I've been able to do that with all of you in times of exciting legislative action and in times of soul-crushing heaviness. However, during these past 10 years, I have come to understand that FCNL is more than only a lobbying organization. We are practicing public theology. And here's a definition of what I mean by that: articulating religious and spiritual points of view to challenge and deepen thinking on every side of every important question in public and political life. That's a definition from Krista Tippett, host of On Being. That we are a Quaker organization operating from the spirit of love, and that we remain open to divine revelation, means that we will never be finished. We will not be able to stop acting for justice and peace and protecting our planet. I hope that FCNL's evolution is always the story of a spiritual presence set in this very political environment. I began by telling you my story of coming to FCNL. The opportunities that I have had to travel across the country to friends' meetings and internationally have been rich. The hospitality I've enjoyed in visiting supporters in their homes and understanding their deep commitment to our work that they are able to express with their financial support, this has been very rich for me as well. The excitement and enthusiasm of young adults I've seen as they participate in Spring Lobby Weekend, join our advocacy corps, work as summer interns, and of course, watching the growth and development of program assistants who spend a year working with FCNL consistently inspires and gives me hope. I am always impressed by the knowledge, passion, and dedication our staff bring to their work. You know what I'm talking about because you've seen them at work the last few days. And I'm deeply grateful to the General Committee especially to these clerks who give so much of their time, spirit, and attention to steward and serve FCNL. I'm going to close my remarks this evening by telling a story that I will always carry with me. In 2011, shortly after I started working at FCNL, I traveled to Iraq, Palestine, Israel, and Gaza with a dinner stop in Amman, Jordan. Jonathan Evans, who worked at FCNL at the time and who had lived in Jerusalem and taken many groups to visit Israel, Palestine, was my travel companion and teacher. It was both an enchanting and disturbing journey. Enchanting to receive the hospitality and warmth of Palestinians who welcomed us in their homes and served us delicious meals and who shared their stories, including Jean Zaru. In Amman, in Ramallah, and in Gaza, we visited. We witnessed the aftermath of the fighting of the US war in Iraq while visiting Erbil and Sulaymaniyah. Through the guidance of Jim and Debbie Fine, who are working with the Mennonite Central Committee, we saw the witness of Christian peacemakers and the training of Iraqi seminarians in the Chaldean Catholic Church. It was sobering to be there, to see the destruction and understand the ongoing threats and risks that people lived with, was to understand that wars don't simply go away when troops pull out. To cross the Allenby Bridge from Jordan to Palestine was the opening snapshot for me of the Israeli security state. The rich and complex history of place and people is so alive in Jerusalem and throughout the Holy Lands. Every person we talked with, whether Israeli or Palestinian, every neighborhood we visited, told us generational stories of both oppression and hope. On the day before we were scheduled to return to the US, we gained permission to travel to Gaza. Moving through the heavily militarized checkpoint was reminiscent of entering a prison. A recognition for me of the isolation and oppression of the 2 million people who live in Gaza, but it also made me more aware of the carceral state we have created in the US, the mass incarceration and detention measures that lock people away, as if that were an effective solution to problems, and the ongoing challenges and degradation it means for their families. We visited the AFSC office in Gaza, a program doing incredible work with youth. We rode by taxi through Gaza alongside donkey-driven carts and old vehicles in the dusty streets, seeing crowded conditions and poverty, and the evidence of destruction from the 2008 Operation Cast-Lead war. The contrast of the inequity in Gaza City with Tel Aviv, a vibrant, modern city less than 50 miles away, was stark. Although not unlike the stark differences in wealth inequality and income inequality we see in US cities. At the end of that day in Gaza, we were invited to the home of a former colleague of Jonathan's, a Palestinian woman and her family who he had worked with in Jerusalem. I was feeling emotionally spent and reluctant to go out, but in fact, I was very blessed by that encounter. It was lovely and restful to be in their home. They shared stories of their lives, the challenge of living under occupation, and the joy of their daughter's engagement. As with everyone we had met on that trip, we asked this question: what should we tell people in Congress and our colleagues at FCNL or friends throughout the country about the situation in Gaza or in Iraq or Israel, Palestine, wherever we were? The answers, of course, varied. Many were political thoughts or ideas, sometimes policy ideas. But that evening in Gaza, Nazim's comment was to the heart. Tell them we're human. Tell them we're human beings. The longing of every soul to be seen, to be known as a human being is a truth I think about every day in our work. As we are lobbying for an end to US support for the Saudi war in Yemen, or lobbying for a pathway to citizenship for immigrants, or for the tax credit programs to end poverty for families, we are claiming the humanity of every human being, that every human has value. Every human is a beloved child of God. I firmly believe that as FCNL evolves, as we continue to become, we will remain steadfast to answering that of God in every human being. FCNL has a unique voice in the cacophony of our current political life. Our peace testimony is not simply an anti-war statement. It is an approach that shuns violence and works to build community globally, nationally, and even within our organization. I believe FCNL's story will always be a story of courage and persistence. But above all, we must remain grounded in the spirit of compassion and speak truth to power. The world, this country, this Congress, indeed, every one of us needs one another's commitment to peace. We need our actions for justice. As we pursue the world we seek, a world free of war and the threat of war, a society with equity and justice for all, and communities where every person's potential may be fulfilled and an earth restored, let us choose hope and let us abide in love. Thank you, friends.
And now we'd like to welcome you all to use the chat function on Zoom and post something in the chat on what was most striking about the conversation in your particular breakout room. And as is of course the case, we have about 5 minutes here before we want to hear from a special guest.
Mary Klein says, a sense of forward movement all around. We have struggles in humanity on all sides, gratitude. Everybody is doing something. People are feeling emboldened. Hope buoys us all, working with inspirational staff and friends. Determination to keep focused and moving forward with hope. Oh, it's moving so fast. I'm having a hard time reading it, y'all. Relentlessness is vital. Self-awareness and accountability. Fun to see old friends. The variety of ways friends are finding to be in service. Remain open to love. Advocacy, advocacy, advocacy. There is so much here, friends. Thank you for sharing in the chat. And I'm going to wait for the chat to slow down a little bit, but we do have a link where you can share other wishes with Diane.
Yes, I was going to say, we're not recognizing people to speak during this segment for time, and also there's so much to say. But please continue to post in the chat. And if people would want to share more publicly, you can go to the link fcnl.org/thanks Diane to share a story or a memory, a well wish, even a photo. That would be wonderful in a more permanent thing than this evanescent chat that's flowing and flowing, but you can see the love and inspiration and hope in front of all of us. It's really wonderful to see. And you can continue to post those messages. The chat will keep going. But at this point, we're going to hear from a handful of members of the FCNL community reflecting on their particular experiences with Diane over the last decade. And this is a recorded video.
Diane is a wonderful leader. She has expanded FCNL in so many ways. I was fortunate to be part of the Friend in Washington program right before COVID. And we focused on domestic policy issues, which was something that she had, I think, wanted to expand. But I also, as part of that, I could see just what kind of leader she was. She's an inspired leader. She is grounded in Quaker truths, in her own truth. She's brave. She has courage to speak up when speaking up is the right thing to do. She's well organized. The staff really respond to her and give the most that they can. It was a transformative experience for me, and I am extremely grateful to the whole organization, but to Diane in particular.
When I think about Diane's legacy of leadership, I think about the DEI work that I have been doing with her, especially this last year that we've had the DEI working group. And Diane has been there every step of the way and is not only contributing her own voice to the work and her own deep dedication to the work, but also sharing regularly on behalf of the staff and sharing what matters to the staff as we take on this work. And so that always helps me feel as though we're all in it together and that it is making a difference in terms of the work within FCNL and the power of the work that FCNL is able to accomplish.
When I think of Diane's legacy of leadership at FCNL, I focus on her extraordinary ability to actualize vision, spiritual vision in the form of program. It's a remarkable ability. So, you know, we can thank her for her work in helping to form the Quaker Welcome Center, the advocacy corps, the advocacy teams, the Friends place on Capitol Hill, but they're all driven by a spiritual concern, which she seemed to have a particular facility to actualize. And that's been a great gift to all of us.
As a person of faith, you know, I knew I wanted to be involved in some type of ministry, but I knew that I didn't want to be a pastor, or I knew that I didn't want to be preaching every Sunday, but I wanted to be, I felt called to something. And when I came to FCNL and saw and met Diane and saw that you know, advocacy is a way of ministry, really spoke to me. And I think Diane's life as well, as, you know, I believe she grew up in the Lutheran tradition, and then she came to, you know, she found Quakerism and became a convinced friend. And that just resonated a lot with me, because I went to a small evangelical Christian college, and I, you know, when I came to FCNL and I learned about this theological, you know, this theological tradition, about this tradition, and, you know, that there's that of God, and everybody just revolutionized my theology and the way I view God and the way I want to live out my faith. And I think Diane's life and her testimony really encouraged me that, you know, this is a way of ministry, and this is possible.
Thinking about the legacy that Diane is leaving at FCNL, I would say the increase in staff and the ability to make that much larger staff work well together. And I think there's a great sense among the staff of unity, and that makes things work much better on all counts.
Diane, congratulations on your tenure at FCNL. The time has gone by so quickly. It's been such a privilege to know you. Your testimony and passion for key Quaker testimonies has been a tremendous inspiration for myself, but on a very personal level, it's also been a tremendous inspiration for both of us, as it's given Sarah a chance to see important Quaker principles. And it's been an introduction because she's of the Jewish faith, but there's a lot of overlap. Mm-hmm. I'm deeply appreciative of the long-term stand to a peaceful world, and that war is not the answer. Quaker testimony to resolving inequalities without resorting to conflict is memorialized by the Nobel Peace Prize after World War II to the Friends Ambulance Service. But as a physician, my focus is on prevention, and FCNL has been in a leadership position to prevent conflict, which is the key thing. We can't have a nuclear war. We need to prevent it. In this era of polarization, another key aspect that FCNL's had is searching for God in every person, equality, compassion, seeking the sacred of in all life. Your personal commitment to simplicity, integrity has been reflected by the organization. The organization has strengthened work and community values, period. Oh, again, on a personal note, we have an employee who is an American Indian. I really appreciate FCNL's dedication to communities that are underserved.
Another, I think, very important legacy that Diane is leaving with FCNL is the advocacy teams. This is a way where, people can write a check or, maybe attend a program. But the advocacy team gives the average citizen, FCNL supporter, a real structure and focus to really make a difference with Quaker values in Washington, D.C. And it's a really terrific organization because you put FCNL under Diane's leadership, put the staff into it to create the teams and continually support them. And, I've got it on my calendar, first Wednesday of the month.
As an FCNL intern decades ago, FCNL really helped me shape the direction of my life. Unfortunately, after that period, I wasn't very involved. Getting to know Diane and having her challenge me to bring my Quaker faith and my life experience back to FCNL has been personally rewarding. Diane's vision for big transformational changes has inspired me just as it has inspired and grown FCNL. The thing that has always impressed me the most about Diane is her ability to inspire young people. Importantly, she always understood the need to have a platform from which today's youth can do tomorrow's work. I've been blessed to be part of the Capital Campaign and the building advisory groups for both the Quaker Welcome Center and the Friends Place on Capitol Hill. Diane understands the need for a physical presence, but more importantly, she understands that the real value is in the use and the programming of that physical space. Her vision, leadership skills, and determination ensure that these projects will create a place and a financial backing from which future generations can carry on the work of FCNL. Diane, we thank you for everything you have done, both for the organization and for many of us personally. We wish you the very best in whatever path you choose.
I'll say one of the best memories I have was when she came to San Francisco one time, and we went out to dinner at a local Indian restaurant with my son Ruben, and that was a really, and I'm not, it was not so much the dinner that I really remember, but what I really remember is that she remembered Ruben. Like a year or two later, she asked me about him by name. And that's just very impressive to me that somebody is as busy as she is, who meets as many people as she does, is able to be that personal, to really be that personal with everybody that she meets.
I think Diane led me to my spiritual community, and that she was the leader that brought me to FCNL. And I was so moved by my experience at annual meeting that I brought it home to my own meeting. And I stood up and I just said, hey, I'd like to start doing some lobbying work. Is there a couple of you that'd like to join me in that? And we ended up having 30 people. I was shocked at all these people that came up and said, I want to do this too. I want to do this too. And our advocacy team was born from that. And somehow my own personal experience, my own spiritual experience translated into our meeting. And we have been a very faithful and loyal group within our meeting in the advocacy team program. We were one of the first teams to get started. And we even translated that to Jimmy Panetta, our elected official. He's a big believer in FCNL also now.
So I know each one of us has a story like that, but at this point, so please keep sharing them on the website and in the chat, but we have a gift to present. And I want to invite Joey Hartman Dow to come forward. In some ways, Joey's journey with FCNL tells the story of the growth Diane has led at the organization, because Joey was an organizer in the first class of the Advocacy Corps, the program established by Diane with the Capital Campaign that every year trains 20 young adults in our Quaker style of lobbying. Advocacy Corps organizers get a small stipend to support their efforts working around the country in their communities to bring others in to becoming lobbyists with their members of Congress on a key focus issue each year. They are local community organizers. Once the Quaker Welcome Center opened, Joey was the first friend in Washington in the revitalized program to stay in the new space. Joey came to DC to work as an artist for several months on a project that involved creating in graphic novel, comic strip formats, talking about FCNL's style of lobbying, sharing her ideas, energy, and art with FCNL staff and constituents. Joey also joined the Visiting Friends program, visiting other Quaker meetings to talk about her own journey with FCNL and the importance of this work as a faith practice. Today, Joey is a leader in the Advocacy Teams program in New Orleans. The floor is yours, Joey.
Thanks, AT. I have a very clear memory of when I approached Diane and asked her if, would it be possible for there to be an artist in the Friend in Washington brand new residency? And she was just so open to it and so ready for there to be this new thing. And I think I was particularly impressed that she trusted me because it was so new and it was, I was a young person, and I appreciate so many things about Diane. And one of my favorites is that she really understands intersectionality, and that is so important in a leader. And I've seen her put that into action so many times. Even on Wednesday evening, heard her just like bring up gender equity into a conversation. And it's just so easy for her to do that. And it's really admirable. I'm very excited to present this gift. This is a portrait of Diane that I drew in the style of my series of portraits of inspirational women who deserve to be recognized. And so on behalf of FCNL, I'm going to send you this drawing original. I'm also going to send you a calendar and this print, which you can see on the screen, which reads, Diane Randall, the first woman to serve as FCNL's General Secretary, badass community leader, faithful ally, and fierce advocate for a peaceful, equitable, and just world. Thank you, Diane.
Joy, that's so amazing. I love it. I love it, love it, love it.
Thank you so much, Joey. And we're going to wrap up with an opportunity for all of you to show your appreciation for Diane. And that's a big hint. Some of you know what I'm talking about, to get ready. But before we do that, I want to remind you that we'll be back here tomorrow for the final day of annual meeting. We'll begin with worship with Deborah Seuss, our worship leader from the North Carolina Fellowship of Friends, at noon Eastern time, and earlier for those of you further west. So first, I'd like invite you all to click the gallery view so that we can all see each other, as many people as you can fit on your screen. And for many of you, it's in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, and especially you, Diane. So we need you on gallery view for this to work. I hope everybody can find it and see all the many, many, many friends in their boxes, and feel free to click through pages and pages of us as we now all pull out the signs that many of you received in the mail, show them on the screen. If you don't have a sign, you can show your love with the heart reaction, the heart on Zoom, or put it in the reaction. And we invite you all now to unmute and give your well wishes to Diane. And then Annie will close us out with some music in a few minutes. But let the sound begin.
We'll miss you. Miss you.
Testimony. Bye.
Everything you've done.
Wonderful.
We're gonna miss you.
He's a good
Come back
general
to
secretary.
Montana.
For
your inspiration. Seattle.
Diane.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diane.
Who said there couldn't be a celebration or party on Zoom? Thank you all so much. This is so touching.